Alana looked over the evaluation sheets one more time and glanced again at the man sitting across from her. There was no emotion on her face, no hint of excitement, but her heart was beating hard. She had everything she needed to seal this deal. Mr. Weeks, the offer we sent you 2 weeks ago has not, and will not change. I don't understand why you called this meeting, she said, setting the paper aside. Because the sentence is an insult. Increase it by at least an order of magnitude, and you're a wrecking ball away from reality, the middle-aged man said, pounding his fist on the table. Mr. Weeks is a fifth-generation owner of an ink company, but that's about to change. If this proposal is such an insult, why are you still here? Why even have this meeting in the first place? Why didn't you burn the letter we sent? You don't have to answer that, because I already know. Last year, Superior Incorporated made $38 million in profits, down from the previous year. In fact, you haven't seen an increase in profits in almost 7 years, have you? In 2 years, you'll start losing money. Our offer is the only way out for you. Mr. Wick's demeanor was becoming increasingly agitated. We are in the midst of a project that will radically change our profit projections. You mean the marketing consultant you hired a year ago? The third one you've paid a 7-figure sum to in the last 5 years? Mr. Wick, I need an answer to that offer or we're going to turn it down, Alana said coldly. He lowered his gaze to the paper in front of him that outlined the details of the proposal. His eyes raced frantically across the page and his face flushed red before he finally exploded with anger. I'm not going to sell my company to an arrogant bitch to tear it apart and sell off the shards. You think you can just put on your slutty outfit and bring your lapdogs here and expect me to do what you want? The men you take into your bed every night can do that, but not me. You bloody idiot. I'll make you roll on the ground in pain, Franklin replied with equal anger. Franklin is a partner in my company. He is brilliant at finding companies like Superior Inc. that are 1 to 2 years away from collapse. By finding companies like that, we can make them an offer for much less than they're worth, a few years before the big corporations find out about them, and then sell off the pieces at a big profit. Alana raised her hand to Franklin, and he fell silent. He was good at finding these companies, but bad at making deals with them. Take a walk, Franklin. Mr. Wick and I will discuss something, she ordered him. Franklin rose from his chair, still keeping his eyes on the man, but gave up and headed for the exit. Name-calling, especially referring to my gender and appearance, was pretty much standard in this business. Facing the prospect of parting ways with your company puts any man in an emotional state. However, handing over the keys to a young woman? That seemed to double their negative feelings. Alana was in her early 30s, and while she wouldn't call her outfit slutty, she didn't dress like she was attending a funeral. She was also not a petite woman, almost 5 feet 9 inches. Even before she started her business, she had decided to adopt a healthy lifestyle and fitness routine. Every day she worked out with a kickboxing trainer. Alana didn't let money be the only source of power in her life. Left alone with her, Mr. Wick looked at Alana expectantly. Was his outburst of anger and name-calling about to return to her tenfold? I started my company the same way your great-great-grandfather did. Using the little capital I managed to accumulate as a teenager, I began acquiring struggling local businesses and then selling their parts for more than the whole was worth. With that money, I was able to buy larger companies and make even bigger profits by selling off their parts. Now I'm buying companies with 8-figure valuations. Alana stood up and started pacing around the room. And made you a billionaire, Mr. Wick added. It was true. About 2 years ago, Alana's accountant had informed her that her personal assets had surpassed the $1 billion mark. She had long ago acquired everything she needed in her life. 10 million or 1 billion had no impact on her life. Therefore, Alana had never given this momentous occasion much importance. Your grandfather recognized the value of dye ribbon early on, and was able to take Superior Ink to the next level. Your father took it even further when he got into inkjet printing early on. But you couldn't repeat those feats, and as a result, Superior Ink went into decline. Alana continued to tell me quietly. And gloating over my failures will make me sign your deal. I'm not trying to embarrass you or consider you a failure. If I had gotten the reins of Superior Inc. at the same moment you did, I would be in exactly the same situation. Probably even worse. But let's be honest. It's not pride or money that's making you hesitate to take us up on our offer. It's something else, isn't it? Mr. Wickle looked down at his feet as his greatest source of shame was exposed. My father, like his father before him, was able to give me a thriving company to show the world what I could do. But now I won't be able to do that with my son, Mr. Wick lamented. The anger and aggression he had maintained throughout the meeting faded away. What nonsense, said Alana, also changing her attitude. Mr. Wick raised a confused look at her. Your father didn't give you an opportunity. He gave you prison. You had one path in life to run an ink company that had no future. With this deal, you will be able to free your son from imprisonment. With the money you make from the sale to us, he can start his own business in any field he wants. You are giving him what 4 previous generations could not give their sons. Total freedom. Mr. Wick looked at Alana, and wave after wave of emotion ran through him. Then he turned his attention back to the paper he had placed in front of him at the beginning of the meeting. Alan walked out of the conference room and handed the papers to Franklin. Be careful with them, the ink isn't dry yet. As always, terrific, Alana. You need to teach me how to get these suckers to sell against their best interests, Franklin said as he hurried after her. First of all, don't act like an emotional teenager, Alana replied stiffly. Franklin might be a benefit to the company, but personally, Alana didn't like him. His business ethics had always been questionable at best. In the 3 years he had worked for her, Alana had heard numerous rumors of him yelling at employees and harassing women. However, each time she had dealt with them, the witnesses had fallen silent. It didn't help that Franklin had started putting his own people in key positions, such as human resources. The board of directors liked his job too much to simply fire him because Alana treated him badly. She would need hard evidence, which she hadn't found yet. For now, he remained a useful liability in her eyes. I apologize for that, Alana. My passion for this company sometimes boils over like this, he said in a tone that Alana realized he wasn't sincere. She sighed and left the matter at that. The important thing to realize is that we are not taking advantage of these people. We're saving them. In another 2 years, this company will be worth 10% of what we paid for it. A larger firm will come in and leave them virtually homeless. We identify them before that happens and everyone stays ahead. Alana had explained this philosophy to him more than once, but Franklin couldn't accept a situation where both sides would be considered winners. As usual, he didn't pay attention to the lesson. In honor of our victory today, perhaps you and I could take a trip into the city? I can introduce you to the world of fine brandy, he said, changing his tone to a more friendly one. Ms. Goodwin, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I need to remind you of your meeting in the dining room this evening, her assistant informed her, following behind. Alana couldn't help but smile. She had made it a habit for all of her assistants to remind her whenever Franklin suggested a date. In this case, however, it wasn't a lie, as she had actually planned to work in the kitchen tonight. Thank you for reminding me. I apologize, Franklin, but I must decline. However, you are welcome to join me. We always have room in our kitchen for new guests. Franklin's friendly attitude was discarded as he realized he wasn't going to get what he wanted from her today. I just remembered that I have an important meeting today too. With those words, he turned in the opposite direction. At the entrance to the building, Alana sat in the back seat of a waiting car. Soup kitchen, ma'am? The driver asked. She nodded, and the driver pulled into the street for the ride to the location. Alana had made a commitment to set aside time at least twice a month for charity work. In particular, she wanted to work directly with those who needed help. When Alana's business took off and she became a multimillionaire, her father pulled her aside one day. Her parents raised her in a modest household, and her father understood that she was entering a lifestyle she had no experience with. People will start to convince you how special you are and how much harder you've worked than those with less wealth than you. It's easy now to tell yourself that you won't forget how people struggle to make ends meet. But after years of dealing with people who have never missed a rent check, you'll start to believe the crap they keep telling you. Promise me that you will take the time to help those in need. And not with money, but with your time. Meet these people. Talk to them. Touch their lives and let them impact you in the same way. 6 months later, he passed away from a heart condition, and she kept her word. Arriving at the kitchen, she put on an apron and took a seat at the counter just as the place opened and people began to flock in. Normally she would have come in an hour early to help prepare the food, but the previous meeting had prevented that. Good evening. We have fresh hot soup ready to hand out. There are crackers too if you'd like, Alana said, handing over the bowl she just filled. Mr. Folds, how's your leg? Were you able to get help at the clinic? She asked an elderly man standing in line. That's better already, Ms. Goodwin. Thank you for asking, he replied, taking the bowl. Talking to these people was extremely important to Alana. She wanted to understand them and empathize with them. For the next 30 minutes, she continued to pass out soup, talking to those she knew and getting to know those she didn't. Today, as on all other days, the line for food was long. You need to hurry up. You're taking too long to distribute the soup, came a harsh voice as she had just finished hearing about the woman's grandchildren. Excuse me, Alana said, looking around for the man who had spoken so rudely to her. Off to the side she found a tall, stout man who looked like he had just come in from a long day of chopping trees. He was far from the stereotypical image of a homeless man. He was no more than 27 or 28 years old. However, because of the quarter-inch-long beard that covered his face, it was hard to tell for sure. He had long, curly brown hair that looked surprisingly well-groomed but greasy. He was wearing a worn flannel shirt and blue jeans that had been ripped and mended so many times it was a wonder how they still held together. What set him apart from the other men in line, however, was not just his age, but his eyes. Passion and life glowed in them. Many of the men coming through the line looked defeated, as if they had nothing to look forward to but death itself. You've been serving soup for too long. Spend less time talking and more time serving food, he admonished her. The brief moment when Alana had admired the man's spirit had passed, and now everything about him only made her angry. Now listen to me. Get back in line and be patient. I'm not here to just hand out food like a robot. You may not care, but many of these people have not been spoken to in a human way all week. It's not just their stomachs that are hungry, Alana snapped. I understand, but, the oddly handsome homeless man replied irritably. However, Alana wasn't going to let him bully her anymore. If you're so anxious to get your soup, come early next time. We're doing the best we can with the limited number of people we have. Now step back or I'll have you removed whether you're hungry or not, she said, pointing to the end of the line. The man desperately wanted to object, but held back. He grunted loudly and walked away. Alana picked up the ladle and found her hands shaking. This damned man was really making her nervous. She'd had unruly men in the kitchen before, but not like this. She tried to forget about him, but he kept coming back into her mind. Soon she was already passing out bowls, barely speaking, pondering what had happened. She understood how people who hadn't eaten for days could be. But this guy was built like a tank. Surely he must have had other ways to get food. Why couldn't someone like him get a job? Was he lazy? Maybe that was why he had such an effect on her. Kitchen time was coming to an end, and they closed the doors just as the last person was fed. Alana apologized to the rest of the crew, saying she couldn't stay to help with the cleanup, but would be back soon to make it up to them. She walked back to the car and once inside, told the driver to go to the next meeting. The meeting with the finance department, ma'am? I just got a call from Franklin informing me that the meeting has been rescheduled for another evening. He suggested you meet at the new bar downtown for a drink instead, the driver said, looking back at her through the rearview mirror. Damn, Alana thought. She wondered if the meeting had even happened, or if Franklin had only made it up so she wouldn't have an excuse not to have a drink. Great. It's only a few blocks from here. Let's go. The bar reeked of arrogance and $45 martinis. The perfect place for a man like Franklin. He waved her toward a corner booth he'd probably snuck into through intimidation and bribery. "Thank you for joining me, Alana. I thought you could use a drink after spending the last hour among these beggars. They have some newly imported Calvados brandy that you should try." He snapped his fingers and caught the eye of a passing waitress. "Bring 2 fingers of Calvados for my friend," he ordered. "Excuse me," Alana said to the startled waitress. "I'll order for myself and wait for our real waiter to come." With a sigh of relief, the waitress went on her way. "Fingers are a measure of whiskey, not brandy. Just so you know, Franklin." As he usually does when he's corrected, he didn't bother to respond to what was said and turned the conversation to something else. "Alana, I know you have doubts about the change in strategy I'm pushing for, but let me explain it better." Alana had heard Franklin present the idea many times, and just as many times she had firmly rejected it. Still, it was better to give Franklin a chance to reflect before blowing him off again. "We were passive in the acquisition market, waiting for companies to start moving down the path of failure, and we would pick them up. But what if we took the initiative? So many companies are living on the edge. The difference between a successful business and failure can be a rumor. Maybe someone will start a rumor that a competitor has released a new product that will take share away from them. Or maybe a bank will make an undervalued offer on a business that will scare away investors. There are many opportunities that we ourselves can realize. We artificially lower the perceived value of the company and then swoop in and buy it up. We can increase profits tenfold in just a few years. We can also destroy people's lives unnecessarily. I didn't start this company to destroy the hard work of men and women. I want to catch companies before they fail completely," she replied, as always, to such a suggestion. "You're making a mistake, Alana. The board is very interested in this, and I'm worried that your reluctance will cause them to act," he said with a smug look. Franklin was too good at weaseling people into thinking he was a nice guy. "We're not changing any minds today," so she changed the subject. "I hear you're recommending a sawmill out east for our next acquisition. Tell me about it. It's a small deal, but the company is starting to struggle and could be an easy win for us. I have it all sorted out and will bring it to the board of directors for approval in a few weeks. Your involvement is not necessary. Everything the man touches, Alana sees fit to vet, but will leave that matter up to him." "What's wrong with you today, Alana? You look worried. Did that guy from Superior Incorporated get to you that much?" Franklin asked, showing unusual concern for her. Normally she never opened up to him, but now she was warm inside from the cocktail and decided to share a little with him. "There was a homeless man in the cafeteria. But not the kind you usually think of. He was young and healthy. Anyway, he really got on me for handing out food faster, and it really hurt me. Most likely the guy was an alcoholic who just wanted a free handout. Not worth a second thought," Franklin said dismissively. Alana nodded in agreement, but knew there was much more to this man than met the eye. Alana apologized, finishing the only glass, much to Franklin's dismay, but he should be lucky she showed up at all, she thought. "Okay. I need to make a call anyway," he said, opening his phone as she left. Outside the bar, Alana found the sidewalk crowded with people and the street clogged with cars. Knowing she wouldn't be picked up here any time soon, she called her driver. "I'll meet you 2 streets over. There's an alley I can get there through," she instructed. She crossed the street and entered the alley, which was a welcome respite from the crowds and noise on the road. Just 20 feet from the end of the alley, a large garbage truck pulling a dumpster stopped. "Hey, watch out! I'm in the alley!" yelled Alana. The dumpster was elevated, so she couldn't see the driver. The truck didn't give any sign that it heard her and continued down the alley toward her. This was bad. The alley was barely wide enough for the truck to get through. There was no way for her to get out of the way. Seeing no other option, Alana turned and ran toward the opposite entrance to the alley she had entered. But it was hundreds of feet away, while the truck was dozens of feet away from her and picking up speed. Alana kicked off her heels and ran down the dirty sidewalk in bare feet, but the truck continued to pick up speed. The alley was dotted with doors leading to businesses with which she shared a wall. Seeing no other way out, She picked a door and prayed it would be unlocked. But to her horror, the knob would not turn. It was locked, and she was dead. She turned to meet her fate in the form of a bright headlight approaching her. Something grabbed her arm, and there was a loud bang, followed by another, accompanied by a cracking sound. Alana was disoriented and thought she heard the sound of a truck hitting her. She was thrown to the ground, and the bright light disappeared. The smell of Chinese food filled her nostrils. She wasn't dead or even badly hurt. "Are you okay, ma'am?" It was a man's voice that asked, and she felt a hand grabbing her shoulder. "Yes, I think so, yes." "Let me get up," she said, slowly rising to her feet. She might be a little bruised, but otherwise she felt no pain anywhere. She must have somehow avoided hitting the truck. As she got to her feet and regained her composure, she realized she was standing in the kitchen of the restaurant, and the kitchen staff was looking at her. "What happened?" she asked. "One of you managed to kick the door in before you ducked inside just as that crazy garbage truck went by. You could have been killed," explained a waitress standing nearby. Alana finally looked up at the man who had saved her and saw the familiar face of the homeless man who had been bothering her so much at the diner. "You!" she exclaimed. His eyes widened with recognition, too. "I'm sorry. I meant to say thank you. You saved my life today," Alana corrected herself. Despite her earlier disagreement, she wasn't about to start a fight with her savior right away. "Don't think about it. You'd have to be a monster not to help someone in trouble like you. I'm just glad I was able to open that door. Otherwise, we'd both be in a bad way right now," the man said, not showing a hint of the anger he had when they first met. "I'm Cole Brown, by the way. I apologize for not introducing myself in the kitchen," he said, extending his hand. "Alana Goodwin," she replied, taking his hand. They stared into each other's eyes for a moment before a man's shout came from the corner of the kitchen. "What happened to my door? Did we get robbed?" Cole turned to bring him up to speed. "No robbery, sir, but that's on me. The only way my friend and I can avoid being hit by a truck in the alley is to escape to your kitchen. Of course, I'll work as long as you need me to until you think I'll pay for the cost of repairs." "That won't be necessary. Send the bill to my office," Alana mumbled, pulling out a business card. Kolya didn't like it, and he gently pushed away the hand holding out the business card. "You didn't break down that door." "It's my responsibility," Cole replied stiffly. "Trust me. I can afford it." "It's not hard at all," Alana said, pulling out her wallet. This only irritated Kolya. "I don't want your money. Don't you dare pay for my mistake. I didn't ask for your help." She quickly remembered exactly what it was about this man that made her so angry. "Listen. I'm not going to pretend like I know what it's like to be homeless, but you have no reason to be so proud. Think of it as a thank you for saving my life," Alana suggested, trying to reassure her companion. Cole walked past her to the man who was staring frustratedly at the broken door. "I can do your dishes for you all tomorrow and more if I have to. Is that okay with you?" he asked him. "You've done work for me in the past." "I'd be happy to take it on again, Cole," the man said, shaking his hand. Alana was usually a quiet woman, but she hated being ignored. "You insufferable dolt! Why do you make everything so difficult?" she shouted. All the kitchen staff looked at her, and Alana felt embarrassed at her outburst. She took a deep breath and decided to leave the topic of paying for the door in the past. "Can I at least take you somewhere to patch you up? You have a skinned shoulder. Please let me do something for you," Alana pleaded. Cole eyed her warily, then rolled his eyes slightly and gave up. "I have some bandages at home. If you really need something done, you can help me put them on there. But no more offers of help, understood?" Alana nodded. Only later, when she followed him out of the kitchen and into the street, did she wonder where they were going. He'd said the stuff was at his house, but wasn't he homeless? Was she really being led to a shabby tent next to a dumpster? On second thought, could she be being taken to a place where he might attack her? She quickly calmed herself, however, dismissing the thought. Hadn't he saved her? Why would someone save you from harm just to straighten you out later? The owner of the kitchen seemed to know him as well, and that calmed her down. As she followed him, she called her driver to inform him of the situation. "Do you need me to come to you, ma'am? You're in danger?" the driver asked. "No, I don't think so. Not right now, anyway. Stand by and I'll let you know when I'm ready to leave," Alana instructed him. Hanging up the phone, Cole looked back at her. "I don't mind if your friend wants to come too. I can appreciate the dangers of the streets. I encounter them every day. I can imagine it's worse for women, especially beautiful women like you." Cole led them through an alley and into a nook between two buildings. Alana saw what looked like a cardboard fortress. It looked like Cole had built a 10 by 10 foot structure, tall enough to stand in. He entered the structure through a swinging door. Alana felt the walls; they appeared surprisingly sturdy. "I fastened the 3 layers of cardboard together with rivets I gathered from scraps lying around. A lot of local stores give me their good cardboard in exchange for cleaning grease traps and doing other dirty work," he said, noticing her admiration for the material. "Why doesn't the rain spoil it? The roof is covered with several layers of plastic bags, which I leveled. Of course, it is also sloped. I chose this particular spot for my house because it is slightly higher than the ground around it, so water doesn't accumulate at its base. Finally, the roofs of the buildings around me drain the water away from the opposite side," he explained. "Wow! You must have taken forever to build this. Very impressive," Alana praised as she entered the house. "I'm pretty good at it. Other homeless people in the neighborhood demanded that I make them a house like this. I offered to show them how to do it themselves, but they refused to learn. All they wanted was a handout. Now they tear down my house every chance they get. I've had to rebuild it many times. Each time I make it stronger, hoping it will withstand their next attack." Inside the structure, Cole removed the flannel shirt and torn t-shirt he was wearing. He began to wipe the wound with a rag before Alana took it from him. "Here, let me do that," she said, starting to wipe away the dried blood. Alana tried not to look at him, but when he took off his shirt, she realized how muscular Cole was. His arm was wider than a loaf of bread and seemed incredibly hard. As he breathed, she could see the muscles in his back tensing and relaxing. The man looked like he was made of titanium. She couldn't let it go unnoticed and had to ask, "Do you have an agreement with one of the nearby gyms where you can work out or something?" Cole looked back at her. "No. I don't have time for the gym. If you're wondering how I keep myself in shape, I'll tell you that our streets are rough. Keeping my house intact isn't the only thing I have to fight for. For every scrap of food or trash that might come in handy, I have to fight for. There are hundreds of desperate people on the streets. Some of them will fight you for the smallest thing. When I first started living on the streets, I had to get strong fast or starve to death. I'm sorry to hear that, Cole. It sounds like a hard life," Alana said as she cleaned up the last drops of blood. "Thank you for saying that, but I don't need sympathy. I've offered help and assistance to many of those who live here, but they don't trust anyone. I'm afraid a lot of that distrust has been passed on to me as well. I don't want to be a project someone takes on to make themselves feel better. I'm perfectly fine surviving on my own," he said, turning away from Alana. "You may not believe me, but you have my deepest sympathy. Every time someone is friendly or nice to me, I can't help but wonder if they have alliterative motives. Where are your bandages?" Cole pointed to a box, and Alana went over and pulled them out. "I'm sure that applies to many attractive women like you," he replied. Alana laughed. "That's true, and thanks for hinting that I'm attractive. But no, I mean something else. But first, let me ask you something. Do you really not know who I am?" Cole looked at her carefully, as if he'd just been asked a question he should have known but couldn't remember. "Have we met before, ma'am? I mean, other than in the cafeteria." Alana studied his answer, but didn't feel he was being sly. It was rare these days that someone wasn't fully aware of her monetary worth before even meeting her. She considered not revealing the fact to him, but hiding it seemed to put her on the same level as those who befriended her only to enrich themselves. "I'm not one to brag or reveal it to people, Cole, but I feel the need to be frank with you. My full name is Alana Goodwin. I'm the founder and CEO of Goodwin Acquisitions. I guess you could call me a billionaire. Pronouncing those words felt awkward. It was as if she was trying to show off in front of this man, but that wasn't her intention. She feared that it might cause a bad reaction from the man. I understand what you mean. Many people probably only socialize with you because of your wealth. It's impossible to understand when someone genuinely cares about you. Alana was shocked to hear this. He understood her so well. Everyone who knew me before I became rich has passed away. Now I keep my distance from everyone, and I'm not sure I'll ever be able to let anyone into my life. At least not completely. For a moment they were both silent, reflective. Cole sighed, as if he had just come to a difficult decision. I haven't told that story to anyone in this town. All I ask is that you remember that you promised not to offer me any more help. Alana nodded, curious to see what revelation he was about to tell her. When I was a kid, my family ran a thriving business offering field dusting services in our hometown of Jezebel Falls. We had one airplane that I was obsessed with as a kid. I looked forward to the day when I could join the company and contribute to the family's success. But when I was about 10 years old, they lost the business. The only thing we kept was the airplane. As a teenager, I learned to fly it, although money for fuel was rarely found. We did pretty well, but life got a lot harder after the harvesting business disappeared. When I graduated from high school, I asked my parents to take a chance and send me to college with the little money we had. I told them that if I could get a business degree, I could support my family. They agreed, which was the biggest regret of my life. Cole paused as the story seemed to bring back his most vivid emotions. Take your time, Cole. You don't have to tell me anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. Alana told him. Taking a deep breath, he regained his composure. No, it's okay. I need to come to terms with my past and stop hiding from it. After all, it's my fault. Alana finished bandaging his arm and Cole began to put his shirt back on. He continued his story in a more serious tone. My parents gave almost everything they had to pay for my school fees. I realized how much they were risking with me. In the summer before university classes started, I read textbook after textbook on the subjects I was to study. I had always been like this. Reading, or rather, learning through reading, was my passion. When classes started, I was eager to learn more. But apparently more than my professor wanted me to. On the second day of class, he addressed the class with a statement that I knew was wrong. Perhaps I should have remained silent, but I had always been taught that right is right. In class, in front of all the other students, I pointed out the flaws in what he said and even cited references to support my argument. I thought that perhaps he would appreciate the correction or at least encourage a student doing his own research. I was sorely mistaken. Cole stood up and turned away from her. The professor took my question about him as a personal insult to him. He didn't like being embarrassed in front of others, but I tried to explain that I didn't mean it that way. I even apologized for not asking him my questions outside of class. He told me that I had to announce in front of the whole class that I was wrong and the professor was right, or else he would get me expelled. That wouldn't be fair, so I refused. He made the school organize a hearing to decide my academic fate. Cole needed another moment. Alana took the opportunity to express her support. I knew that many professors only cared about their reputations rather than pursuing academic knowledge. But I never imagined they would go this far. It must have been difficult, especially considering you were only a teenager at the time. He turned to face Alana again. My parents decided to come and be with me at the hearing. I remember thanking them for that offer. I could have told them to stay home, but I didn't. I wanted them to be with me. In the morning, as they were driving in the car, they were hit by a bus running a stop sign. It was later found out that the driver should not have been allowed to drive because of his previous incompetence. They died instantly. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, Cole. She stood up to comfort the man, but his body language quickly showed he wasn't happy about it. It was hard enough for Cole to open up and tell this story. He wasn't ready for someone to get physically close to him. I got a call from the police and rushed to the hospital where I found out that they had died. I asked the professor to postpone the hearing, but he refused. The hearing went ahead as scheduled, and without my defense, the decision was made to kick me out. In one day, I lost my parents, their money, and my future. This is what happens when I ask others for help. Tragedy. I don't plan on being homeless for the rest of my life, but I'd rather die here than let others down again. Alana pondered how best to answer. His life philosophy was so flawed and shaped by sadness, but he was in no position to challenge it right now. Obviously, she was in a position to greatly improve his life. In a matter of hours, she could get him into an apartment where he could live, and find him a job he could start tomorrow morning. But he wouldn't accept even a stick of gum from her, let alone that kind of help. But what she could do was be a friend. Even if he wouldn't believe that was all she was offering. What about your parents' house? The belongings? They must have had something you could inherit? They were already behind on their house payments, so it came first, along with most of their possessions. The only thing they didn't take right away was the dusting airplane. But it was in a rented storage unit. Unable to pay the rent, I couldn't access it. I'm sure it had already been dismantled for parts or had rotted away. More than a house or any other possession, what hurts me the most is the realization that my parents' plane is missing. It looks like you've managed to moonlight at various places around town. Why can't you find a paying job? After my parents died and I was kicked out of school, I got depressed and just lived on the streets. Eventually I realized that they didn't want that, so I started self-improvement. I managed to get jobs at fast food places and similar places. But after a few days, they would start demanding information about me, like an address. They always find out I'm homeless and then they let me go. They think that the fact that I'm homeless means I'm violent and crazy, even though the person in front of them is a calm person. Sure, some places will let me do some work in exchange for favors, but they can't take me on a paycheck. It's almost impossible to get out of this world. Cole laments. Alana couldn't hold back any longer, despite what she had promised earlier. What you're saying is that it's impossible to escape without help. Besides, you're already accepting help. I saw you in the mess hall, remember? If you're willing to accept help from him, why not let me help even more? Since her arrival at the orphanage, Alana had seen Cole gradually let her guard down. But all the progress made in getting through to him had instantly vanished after her words. I wasn't in the kitchen to accept free food. I was working there, just like you. But apparently you couldn't appreciate that, and saw me as nothing more than a homeless man looking for a handout. But you yelled at me for taking too long to hand out food, she said defensively. You may have the luxury of time, but if you take too long to distribute soup and by closing time there are still people standing in line, people leave hungry. My yelling at you will result in people having food in their stomachs. Alana was getting more and more frustrated listening to all of this. Perhaps she had misjudged him at the shelter. But who ever heard of a homeless person working in a soup kitchen? He helps others in any way he can, but goes into a rage when the slightest help is offered. Cole was getting more and more agitated as well. Thank you for wrapping my arm, but it's time for you to leave. It's obvious you don't understand me or even want to understand me. You're no better than those who use you for money. Alana was in complete agreement that it was time for her to leave. Hopefully, when you're an old man and homeless, your pride will help keep you fed and warm. She left before she could say her last word. Alana called her driver, who met her on a nearby street without any problems. After assuring her that she was fine, he drove her to her apartment. Despite her best efforts, even on her third glass of wine, Cole didn't leave her thoughts. Eventually that night's sleep found Alana, and she woke up awake, alert and rested, with Cole remaining just a distant thought in her mind. Upon arriving at the office, however, everything changed. On the first floor of the building, near the visitor's entrance, Alana heard an argument breaking out around a small group of people. Normally she didn't pay attention to such incidents, but today she was curious to see what was going on. She approached one of the security officers standing away from the group. "What's going on here?" she asked. "Good morning, Ms. Goodwin. You have nothing to worry about. There's a vagrant here who claims to know you and wants to meet you. They'll be removed soon." the guard tried to assure her. "Let me look at him," she replied, already guessing who it was. As he led her through the crowd, she made sure her intuition was correct and saw Cole arguing with Franklin. "Ms. Goodwin doesn't want to talk to the likes of you, trash. Get out or be thrown out," Franklin threatened him, accompanied by several guards. As much as Alana wanted to see Franklin's man of small stature trying to move Cole somewhere, she needed to defuse the situation. "Things. And I have no desire to be spoken to because of Franklin. Back off, he's a friend," she said, holding out her hand to Kolya. "I apologize for causing so much trouble. I just wanted to apologize for leaving you last night. The only way I knew how to contact you was through your business. I should have just mailed a letter. I apologize again, ma'am," he said, taking her hand and bowing slightly. "Let's agree that we both left things in a bad state last night, Cole. But apology accepted," Alana replied, smiling. "And if everyone here doesn't mind, I'd like to speak without an audience." The small crowd understood the meaning of what was said and dispersed. Everyone except Franklin. Most of the time he doesn't take direction from her. Why should he start now? Do you really know this man? Has your desire for charity gotten you so far that you are now friends with these people, Alana? You're entering a world of disease, hard drugs, and crime. You don't need to have fun with scum like him," Franklin said. "That's the second time you've d'd him trash. I didn't like it the first time you called my friend that. And I certainly didn't like it the second. This man saved my life last night from a runaway dumpster," Alana scolded him. Hearing this, Franklin's mood changed. "I didn't know about that. Well, at least he did some good for the world." "It's all right, ma'am. He's just protecting you, and I can't blame him for that. I'll stay out of your business, but as an apology I wanted to offer one more thing. If you're free, dinner tonight is my treat. It's not the fancy places you often dine at, but there's a nice Italian eatery on 5th Street. Will that suit you?" Franklin laughed when he heard this. "That's adorable. It's like when a kid wants to make dinner and honestly thinks the plastic food he put on his plate is real food. Cole, I would only applaud that. These fine dining establishments think that 2 olives on flavorless pasta is a dish worthy of its $300 price tag. I'd love to have a greasy pizza tonight and walk out of a restaurant fed for once," she said, ignoring Franklin. "You're making a mistake, Alana. He's dangerous," Franklin warned. "I'll meet you there at 7, Cole replied. "It's a date," Alana said as she continued to happily ignore Franklin. They shook hands one more time, and Cole left. Alana headed for the elevator, and Franklin followed her like a worried puppy. "If all you want is pizza, I know," he started before Alana interrupted him. "I need more than just pizza. And what I want, you can't provide." "I'm sorry, Franklin." He paused in stunned silence, letting Alana slip away from him into the closing elevator. Franklin avoided Alana for the rest of the day, which was a nice side effect of today's lobby encounter. She wondered if she could convince Cole to make a scene in the lobby every day. But other than that small gift, the workday went on as usual, though her mind wasn't as focused as usual. She didn't want to admit it to herself, but dinner with Kolya excited her in a way it hadn't in a long time. Finally it was 7th, and Alana found Cole waiting for her at the Italian restaurant. She thought long and hard about what to wear, but settled on casual clothes. She was wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt. Clothes she hadn't worn in so long seemed more unusual than an evening gown. Besides, she thought it downplayed her wealth, and with Kolya she was prone to that. It wasn't that he didn't know who she was, but she wanted him to see what she was really like. Kolya was wearing a badly worn button-down shirt and blue jeans. Seeing him again, Alana appreciated something. He was a very clean-cut man. There wasn't a trace of dirt on his clothes, skin, or hair. He also smelled pleasant. Not that he used cologne or anything. Instead, there was a pleasant neutral odor coming off of him. "I can't tell you how excited I am to eat at a casual restaurant like this one. Everyone I work with always wants to eat somewhere French, expensive, and with a chef who's been on the cover of a magazine. I can't even get the interns to eat somewhere like here, even if I'm paying, Alana said as she greeted him. I've never eaten here myself, but they say they're the best. At least the best at $10 a plate. He joked. I've been scrubbing floors here all day, so food is provided. Just don't overdo it. I can always mop more though. Once seated at the table, we decided to share a small pizza with sausage and mushrooms. A lot of people hate mushrooms. I don't. They go with almost everything. Alana complained. Sandwiches, pasta, salads, hamburgers. Anything meaty in general, Cole said supportively. Going into this meeting, Alana promised herself not to dwell on Cole's homelessness in the conversation. She wanted him to feel human, and she also genuinely wanted to get to know him better. Favorite movie? She chided him. Back to the Future Part 2. In fact, any of them. Everyone says the third installment is worthless, but I think it looks great as part of a trilogy. What about you? Should I get ready to hear something about Kristen Heigl? Cole teased. Alana nearly spit out her drink. Kristen Heigl? What is this, 2005? No, I prefer movies that are closer to me, like Richie Rich, she said with a straight face. Cole fell awkwardly silent. It was a joke, Alana finally remarked. Oh, thank goodness. Honestly, I wasn't sure. They sat for over 2 hours, discussing happy memories, favorite things, and sometimes embarrassing stories. Well, yes, until the age where I'm ashamed to admit it, I thought hash browns were made from fish, Alana confessed. Hash browns? You mean the food that tastes like French fries? What's fishy about it? Cole teased. He's white on the inside. Okay, I demand a new topic of conversation. When the bill was already paid, they left the restaurant and agreed to walk around the city. Collier loved to say interesting things about the various businesses they passed by. Bakeries like this one use one of the most amazingly resistant chemicals, he said, pointing to a bread company passing by. Chocolate, Alana said jokingly. Heh. But no. I'm talking about baking soda. It's used in cooking. It's used to clean silver. It even absorbs odors. What else could make that claim? The biggest advantage of a gas station is its location, Cole said as they drove past one. Studies have shown that people are willing to pay 5 cents more per gallon just to avoid turning left on a busy road. That's why you'll see several gas stations on a busy corner. Alana fell silent and let him continue his story about the businesses they were passing by. The active ingredients, the chemicals that actually help you, are only a fraction of the pills sold in drugstores like this one. The rest is chemical filler to keep the pill from being tiny. They usually use substances like sugar or chalk. He looked at Alana. How long have I been talking? I talk all the time, don't I? I'm sorry. It's been a while since anyone's listened to me. Alana took his hand. No, don't be upset. It's delightful to hear you talk like that. But it's also impressive. Where did you learn all this? They continued to hold hands as they walked. Libraries. Being homeless gives me a lot of free time, so I fill it with reading and studying. You're an amazing person, Cole. I'm sorry if this upsets you, but you're wasted on the streets. You could do so much good for society if you had the chance, Alana said. She realized she was leading the topic to a possible conflict, but it needed to be said. And I'll find that chance on my own, no favors or handouts. Just understand. I will earn it, Cole stated. Well, at least you deserve it. Alana stepped toward the man and wrapped her arms around him, pulling him to her for a kiss. After kissing him for a few seconds, Cole slowly pulled away. I'm sorry, I need to know. You're not doing this out of pity, are you? I don't want that. I'm doing this because I have a date with a hot guy who somehow made my engine roar from talking about baking soda, Alana said with a seductive smile. Cole stared at her for a second before saying, I can accept that reason. He leaned in for another kiss. That night, on the corner of a city street, a homeless man and a billionaire kissed. Each kiss set Alana in motion, but she knew she had to stop or the feelings would completely overwhelm her. Wow, did you learn to kiss like that from a book too? she asked him. Cole smiled devilishly and decided not to reveal all his secrets. Listen. Tonight was fantastic for me. If you don't mind, I wish it didn't end there. She told him. I'd like that too, he admitted. There's a company party at my work this Saturday. It's just a fancy hangout for people who pretend to get along outside of work, but really we're just going to talk more about work. If you were there, I'd feel 100 times better. I know you don't like getting free stuff, so why don't you mow my lawn later or something? Alana was nervous for some reason about asking him about it. I'd love to go. What do I need to wear? I can lend you my late father's suit. You look about his size. Saturday afternoon I'll have my driver drop it off for you. The party will be at 8 o'clock that evening. I'll meet you in the lobby. She explained. Are you worried what your coworkers will think about you bringing a homeless man to this fancy party? Cole asked. Do I care what people will think about the fact that I brought an attractive, brilliant young man to meet them? No. Just don't yell at the caterer to serve the food faster. She joked. Cole glared at her but appreciated the joke. He walked her to her car where the driver was waiting for her. They kissed one more time before parting for the night. The week flew by for Alana, but finally came the night of the party. For the first time, she was looking forward to this work meeting. Unlike her last meeting with Cole, this time she wanted to look elegant and wore a long purple dress with matching hair and makeup. Cole was eventually provided with a tuxedo. However, upon arriving in the lobby, Alana was amazed at his appearance. He looked ravishing in his tuxedo, as if it had been custom-made. In addition, his beard was trimmed and his long hair was tucked back. He was stunning. Wow. I know it's a cliché, but you clean up well, Cole. How did you do it? He took her hand and kissed it before answering. People throw things away long before they're completely used up. Razors, toiletries, everything. I guess people throw things away before they realize their true value. Alana said and kissed him. Now let's go upstairs and talk to these people. They keep pestering me with questions about my personal life. I finally have something to brag about. The two of them took the elevator and joined the party on the top floor. Alana admitted to herself that she was a little nervous. She wasn't ashamed that she'd brought Cole, not at all. She didn't care at all what these people would think about her bringing a homeless man to the party. However, some of them might resort to insulting Cole himself. How he'd take it, she didn't know. Questionable. Bringing him here tonight was a risk to this still fresh relationship. She took advantage of the fact that they'd arrived a little late, and she wasn't immediately noticed or surrounded by coworkers wanting to socialize with her. She noticed the friendly group and blended in. Alana! We were just wondering where you were. Who's your friend? One of the women in the group asked. This is my companion Cole Brown. We only met a week ago, but he saved my life. That prompted the two of us to tell the whole story, although Cole's homelessness did not figure in the story. But enough about me, tell me what you do at the company. Cole asked the woman. Right now I'm gathering information on the glass manufacturer we're going to buy. They are struggling with raw material prices and are at risk of going bankrupt. She explained. It's sodium carbonate, isn't it? Or soda ash, as it's commonly called. Here in the US, there's only one source. The big manufacturers have long-term contracts with them, resulting in higher prices for the small manufacturers, Cole said impressively. That's absolutely right. Do you work with glass or something like that? She asked. No, just an avid reader. You should recommend they partner with a glass recycling company. The more recycled glass they use, the less raw material they need to purchase. Maybe they should even enter the returnable glass market. Well, it's not really our job to fix these companies, but rather to buy them out and sell them, the woman said, looking at a confused Alana. It provides a small immediate payoff, but fixing the company can create an ongoing source of cash flow, Cole countered. Another man spoke up in the group. Maybe. But that's not the business Ms. Goodwin created, he said, probably deciding that Alana was feeling attacked. Maybe, said Alana, thinking about it. A 7-figure sum is hardly a small profit. The logging company I'm going to convince the board to let us buy will surpass all of the glass company's earnings in a decade. Franklin found Alana and joined the group. Yes, Franklin. We all know how excited you are about this logging company you want us to acquire. Alana replied with minimal excitement. Something about you doesn't look familiar, big guy. You're Alana's new mercenary or something. He turned to Franklin, seeming not to notice who it was. Cole Brown. I'm here with Ms. Goodwin, but I don't work for anyone. Cole replied, extending a hand to Franklin, which he never grabbed. Franklin had a bad habit of not making eye contact with people he didn't care about. But Cole's reaction finally made him look at his face. Holy shit, you're homeless! He looked at Alana. You brought a homeless person to the party? Are you crazy or are you just trying to prove your weird point to everyone? He'll probably excuse himself by getting high in the bathroom and then sneaking around looking for things to steal. Alana had expected it to come out tonight, but Franklin finding out was the worst-case scenario. I brought a charming and intelligent man with me tonight. Perhaps I was hoping you could emulate his behavior, Franklin, Alana said, standing up for him. Just because he saved you from a dump truck in that alley doesn't mean you owe him anything. The situation was getting very tense, but Cole tried to tone it down. It's true that I live on the streets now. I had a few misfortunes in my youth that led me here. But I've never done drugs. I don't even drink alcohol, he said in a soothing voice. Alana didn't realize it herself. Everyone standing together had a glass of champagne or other drink in their hands, except for Kolya. He hadn't even brought any food with him. But if anyone here is uncomfortable with my presence, I can leave with no problem. After all, this is your corporate party. The group looked at each other for a bit before one of the women spoke. I have enjoyed your stories very much. I would prefer you stay if you can, she said meekly. The other members of the group agreed and the awkwardness was lifted. Well, I have some business to attend to. Not all of us have the opportunity to waste time on such frivolities, Franklin said and left. Alana remembered that he was the one who had insisted that the company hold such events. The couple brushed off Franklin's comments and continued to mingle with coworkers at the party. They asked about his homelessness, to which Cole responded, but the topic hardly dominated the conversation. Instead, he continued to impress people with his knowledge as he continued to better understand how Goodwin Acquisitions works. Word spread around the party about what a charming and interesting person Cole was, and they rarely had a time when he wasn't introduced to other employees of the company. All in all, the evening had gone much better than Alana could have hoped for. She could also tell that Cole had enjoyed it immensely. He had long been starved for intellectual conversation, and tonight was a feast for him. They stayed at the party for almost an hour, but finally decided to call it a night. Let me walk you home, Alana insisted. Truth be told, she wanted to spend more time with Kolya, especially alone. Walking out of the lobby, Alana finally allowed herself to relax. The party had been a huge success. Thanks for joining me today, Cole. I can't believe we stayed out so late. I usually just show up to events like this and try to slip away as soon as possible, Alana admitted. And thank you for inviting me. I'm amazed that you've built this whole company. All these people have jobs because of your efforts. That's what I want to have, too. I want to create something from nothing and develop it into something amazing, Cole said, deep in thought. But I didn't create it from nothing. I had a lot of help along the way. My parents were able to help pay for my tuition. I had friends who invested money when it first started. People offered me ideas and gave me their time. I could never have done it all on my own. Cole didn't say anything back, but he looked as if her words were running through his head repeatedly. They walked down the street at a leisurely pace, holding hands. Feeling a few drops of rain on their heads, it quickly turned into a heavy downpour. We're already close to my shelter. Let's take cover in there, shouted Cole, taking off his jacket and covering Alana from the rain with it. They ran together and made their way to where Cole lived while it rained heavily. Stepping inside, Alana was amazed that the place was dry. You weren't kidding. This place really is watertight. Cole closed the door and the whole cabin felt like you were protected from the elements, like a house. Living and sleeping in a damp room is the fastest way to get sick. I'm working hard to make sure that doesn't happen. The rain may continue for a while longer. You don't mind if I stay here for a while, do you? She asked, holding out her jacket to him. I almost insisted that you stay for a while. I have nothing to offer here, though, he said. Alana smiled warmly at him. I'm happy just to be here, she replied. They continued to talk, gradually deepening the conversation as they got to know each other better. As the storm raged outside, they found comfort in each other's presence. Alana realized that despite her wealth and success, she appreciated moments like these simple and sincere. Her attraction to Kolya grew, not because of material possessions, but because of the way he was. Cole, on the other hand, was overwhelmed by the connection he felt with Alana. He had long ago accepted loneliness as part of his life, but now that Alana was by his side, things were different. Their moments together, free of pretense, were more than he had ever hoped for. They sat side by side and had quiet conversations while the storm outside the window reflected the intensity of the emotions between them. In this small sanctuary, their bond grew stronger, based not on wealth or status, but on the mutual respect and undeniable connection they felt for each other. They found themselves together just as the storm began to subside. Wow, I guess I really needed that, Alana said, catching her breath. I once went 2 days without food. On the third day, I did talk a restaurant into letting me eat after I had spent almost 5 hours washing dishes for them. The burger they gave me was the most delicious thing I've ever eaten. Making love to you today trumps that burger, Cole said, stroking her shoulder. Well, I'm glad sex with me was better than a burger, she teased him. Listen, Cole. I know you won't like hearing this, but I want you to work for my company. Not because I feel sorry for you or because we're lovers, but because I think you could be a great asset. Today at the party, you impressed almost the entire company. You're full of knowledge and ideas. Hell, I almost want you to take my position. That thought had kept her on her mind all evening. She knew he wouldn't like it, but she had to try. Cole didn't answer right away, which Alana thought was an indication that he was really considering the idea. I agreed to be interviewed. But the people who will interview me must not attend the party and must not know about our relationship. They must approve me without your involvement. Those are my conditions, he replied. Alana rose excitedly. I can go along with that. All I want is for you to get in front of people who can see for themselves what you're capable of. That's all I ask. They kissed again. When the storm had completely subsided, Alana got dressed and decided it was evening. It was the best evening she'd had in years, but it was time to head home. Cole walked her to the street where a car picked her up. The following Monday, Alana went to HR to ask to be included in Cole's next round of interviews. She told them nothing but to include him despite his lack of a degree and experience. 2 days later, Cole arrived for his interview, again borrowing a suit from Alana. At this rate, I'll be mowing your lawn for a year, he joked. I don't mind that at all. Just remember that you must not wear a shirt while operating the mower. The manual clearly says so, for safety reasons. Trust me. Cole said, smiling at her. Jokes aside, you will be interviewed by 3 people in different meetings today. You are one of the 10 people they are interviewing. I haven't told these people anything about you, Alana informed him. Thank you for this, Cole said, nervously adjusting his tie. Alana picked up her tie and adjusted it. Keep in mind that if you pass these interviews, you'll be called back for the final panel. Got it, Cole said, taking a deep breath. I'll meet you back here this afternoon. With those words, Cole walked off in the direction of the interview rooms. Alana went upstairs to her office, but she found it hard to concentrate on anything. She often found an excuse to walk down the stairs and past the interview rooms, but it didn't give her any insight into how things were going. She also knew that she couldn't talk to interviewers after the interview as it could be seen as an attempt to influence the outcome. She would only hear about how things went today from Cole himself. Eventually, the time came, and Cole found her in the lobby. I'm dying to know how it went, she confided to him. I think it went well. But we'll see. They said they'll get together tomorrow to make a decision, and then they'll send us a letter. I'll stop by the library tomorrow to check it out, Cole said. The next day, Alana found out when the decision would be made and decided to contact the 3 interviewers immediately afterward. Have emails been sent out to potential employees? She asked the group of 3. Yes, ma'am. But we made a rather controversial decision. If you don't like it, we can always withdraw the emails, one of the men said. No. That's not what I'm asking. The 3 of you were authorized to make this decision, and I'm sticking to it. I'm just wondering who you'll choose. All 3 looked at each other before one of them ventured to voice their decision. We chose Cole Brown. He has no major or education beyond high school, but he's been an amazing pleasure to talk to. Even if he doesn't get hired, we recommend bringing him on as a consultant. And I support your choice, as I said. Now if you'll excuse me, Alana said and walked away. Feeling dizzy, she walked into her office and closed the door, then started dancing. Everything was going just fine. The company wasted no time, and an interview with Cole was scheduled for the next day. Alana promised again that she would not participate in the interview or in the decision. True, she would observe it through the computer. However, there were 2 co-workers on the panel that Alana trusted, as well as Franklin. There was no way he would take Cole seriously, but she had no choice, and she just hoped the other 2 would see his value. Alana watched the interview in her office. Downstairs, in the conference room, a webcam was hooked up, allowing Cole and the interviewers to be seen and heard. Cole entered the room and greeted all 3 warmly, including Franklin, whom he addressed by name. Franklin didn't bother to stand up, but at least extended a weak hand to him for a handshake. The interview began with both interviewers starting to ask questions that Cole was prepared for. His answers constantly elicited nods, smiles, and a few chuckles. Franklin was silent and looked bored. Alana wondered if he was indifferent to the interview and would let the other 2 dictate the outcome. I've heard from previous interviewers that you have an interesting idea for the company. Could you explain it to us today? Cole was asked. Happy. Your business is built on saving companies before they fall to the point where they are worth a pittance of what they once were. An admirable enterprise, no doubt, he said, looking at the panelist. But what if we instead took the troubled companies you're acquiring and turned them around? But how? By combining them with other businesses you've acquired. For example, last year you acquired a small auto parts manufacturer that was struggling with rising steel prices. At the same time, you acquired a mini recycled steel recycling plant. These 2 companies together create a very stable and profitable business. Both panelists looked at each other and nodded. Franklin, meanwhile, was beginning to perk up. This worried Alana. Another example. Earlier, you acquired a regional car rental company that was having trouble getting capital to buy new cars. At the same time, they were selling their used cars for next to nothing to third-party sellers. Combine them with the used car dealerships you bought, and that problem is solved, Cole proudly explained. But that's not what we do. And these ideas are risky. What if they fail? These were the first words Franklin said during the interview. I agree it's a change and not without risk. But think about the companies you sell to. What fatal lesson have they all learned? Innovation or death? They all refused to change their business and suffered as a result. You should see the irony if that lesson is not learned by your company. Excuse me. Are you saying that Goodwin Acquisitions is going to fail? I'm not sure I want such a pessimist on our team, Franklin said irritably. I have no doubt that you are all succeeding. Just like all the companies you've bought in your time. Innovation doesn't just have to come about in hard times, Cole explained calmly. I think we've heard enough. You can go now, Franklin said to Cole. There was still time, but apparently Franklin didn't need it. Cole thanked everyone for their time, including Franklin. As soon as he left the room, Franklin began to lash out at him. Well, it's an easy decision. There's no way a man like that should work for us. The fact that he even got an interview is ridiculous, he shouted. I suspect he forgot I was listening to him. I disagree. I think he was wonderful. His idea has a lot of merit. We see that it's getting harder and harder to find and acquire these distressed businesses. Using those that we find to create sources of constant cash flow is a good suggestion," said another interviewee, and his colleague agreed. "Need I remind you both of my role in this company? I'm not going to let you hire a man who will ruin us. We won't hire him, period," Franklin said, slamming his fist on the table. The other two looked at him like he was defeated and agreed that he could make a decision. But Alana, anticipating where this was going, stormed into the room. "And do I need to remind you of my role in this company, Franklin?" she said, trying unsuccessfully to contain her anger. "Alana, he stammered, glancing at the webcam and remembering that she was watching him. "I authorized the three of you, not just one, but the three of you, to make hiring decisions. And then I hear you going against that and bullying these two into agreeing with you. Is that what I had in mind when I created this group, Franklin? If only we could," he stammered. "Answer my question." "No, ma'am." "Sorry, ma'am," he said, wrinkling his nose. "Now make your hiring decision properly, and I'll talk to you about this ethics violation later, Franklin." Alana ran out of the room in a rage. What should have been a moment of triumph for Cole and company was completely overshadowed by Franklin's childishness. But seeing him cowardly and even calling her ma'am was gratifying. In the long run, she would like to see Cole take his place, but that was a long way off. For now, she continued to tolerate Franklin. That night, Alana and Cole met for dinner, which he agreed she could pay for on the condition that he pay her back with his new job. They celebrated the occasion with wine and discussed how great it would be to work together. "I'll have someone else as my boss, right?" "I can't sleep with my boss," Cole asked. "Of course. There will be procedures in place to ensure independence from me in evaluating your performance and future promotions," Alana explained. "There's something else I'd like to talk about," Cole said a little nervously. "I'd like to make things official between us. I'd like to continue our relationship." Alana leaned over to kiss him. "I've been waiting for you to ask that, big lumberjack." After dinner, at Alana's seductive request, they both went back to her house in the suburbs. She was eager to make love too, and she wanted to spend the whole night with him. She adored their first time together in his shelter, but it was better to sleep together in the same bed. Within minutes of arriving, she had them both naked and lying on the bed. Their bodies were intertwined in every way. Alana wanted this to be her life. Innovating at work with the man she loved, and then coming home together, and releasing the lust they'd been saving up all day working together. And on this night, they would spill that love out several times. Breathless but radiant after their lovemaking, the couple went to bed. "I want you to present your idea to the board tomorrow. It doesn't make sense for us to start implementing it right now. We'll change everything together," she said before kissing him again. The next day Cole came to the board meeting, nervous but confident on his feet. Alana stood up and introduced him to the board members. "Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome our newest employee, Cole Brown, to our team. I asked him to come here today to present what I believe could be a revolutionary new direction for the company," Alana said proudly. "Miss Goodwin, is it true that you and Mr. Brown met during his hiring?" Franklin spoke. In all the years she had known him, he had rarely called her Miss Goodwin. "If you are suggesting that he was improperly hired, I can assure you that he was interviewed through a normal process in which I had no part. Franklin, you were involved in the process yourself and had a say in it," said Alana, who didn't like where he was going with this. But Mr. Braun had no qualifications for this role. No previous experience or education. "We've never hired someone like him before," he continued. "Like I just said, he was hired through. In fact, he has spent the last several years homeless." "You hired an unqualified homeless man you were dating," Franklin said, interrupting her. "For the third time, he went through the multi-level interview process of which I was never part of," Alana said, growing agitated. "You keep saying that, but wasn't the panel about to recommend against hiring him before you intervened?" "That's not answered the question," Franklin said, hitting his fist on the table. She could see a slight smile on his face when he said that. The room was quiet, and all eyes were on Alana. Most noticeably Cole's, who looked at her in dismay. In his mind, this would be a complete betrayal if it were true. "Ms. Goodwin?" a board member asked. "It is technically the truth," Alana admitted. The room erupted in argument. Some rushed to her defense, others called for her head. Cole simply left without looking back. "Cole, wait, it's not what it sounds like," she yelled to him as she started to take chase. But Franklin stepped in front of her to stop her. "Based on the gross misconduct exhibited by her, I motion that the board votes to remove her immediately from her leadership role in this company." Alana nearly slapped his smug face but held back. "You accuse me of misconduct? Is that a joke?" But before the two of them could get into an argument, the board called order to the meeting. "We cannot vote on the removal of Ms. Goodwin in this meeting. The motion can, however, be brought up for our meeting later in the week after we vote on acquiring the lumber company proposed by Franklin. There, we can consider all of the facts before making our decision. Until then, however, Ms. Goodwin will need to refrain from participating in company business." The meeting was dismissed. Alana knew she should stick around, talk things over with board members, and get them on her side for next week's vote. But she only cared about one person's opinion right now, Cole's. Franklin revealed she had gone against his wishes and used her position to secure his hiring. She had only done that because the interview process was being abused by Franklin, but Alana appreciated now that she had still broken her word. She headed down to the lobby but didn't find a trace of him. Similarly, he hadn't headed back to his shelter. Alana went down the street from business to business, asking if they had seen him today, and all indicated no. With daylight starting to fade after hours of wandering the city, she decided to try his home one more time. Her heart started racing when she heard someone inside the cardboard house. "Cole, I've been looking everywhere for you. Please talk with me," she pleaded. The makeshift door opened, but out popped a stranger's face. "How dare you steal Cole's home? You need to leave right now," Alana said, interpreting this man as a thief. "I bought this place fair and square from Cole. Go find your own." The stranger grumbled. "Wait. Cole sold you his home? Why? Do you know where he went?" The man eyed Alana suspiciously. "He sold it to me for enough money to buy a bus ticket. Said he was finally heading home. Now get out of here." That was it. Cole was so disgusted with her that he fled the city he had lived in for years. In a single day, she had lost her love and probably her company and job. All she could do now was try and prevent the board from voting her out next week. In the best case, she could retain the life she had before Cole. The dull, stale life. No, she thought as she gained clarity on the situation. She is prioritizing the wrong things. Her time with her company has taught her that businesses will come and go. But people are what you need to fight for. If she gave up on Cole now, she would forever regret it. She called up her driver to deliver the car. "I apologize, ma'am, but what do you mean by deliver? Do you want me to pick you up?" "No. Bring the car to me, then take the rest of the week off. I need to take a trip but by myself." The driver was unsure of this but did what was asked of him, and Alana was on the road by herself. She inputted the destination into her GPS: Jezebel Falls, the hometown of Cole. Cole had half a day head start on her. Additionally, she knew nothing about this place, so she would have to start her search there completely in the dark. But that was fine. She didn't care how long it would take. On the drive there, she got numerous phone calls from coworkers at the company. Some offered support, some questioned what happened, and a few accused her of misconduct, which she ignored. All of them were upset that she was traveling out of town and not staying to fight. She understood their feelings, but none of them could understand hers. It was a long drive, and she arrived late into the night. The town was small, with no large hotel for her to stay in, but she finally found a small bed and breakfast to stay at. The owner, luckily, was still awake, and rooms were available. "You passing through, I assume?" the kind old man asked. "No, actually. I will be staying for an indeterminate amount of time." "Is that okay?" Alana asked as she filled out the guest card with her information. "Of course." I don't think we've had a full house here in over a decade. Stay as long as you like. Your room is number 1 there down the hall. Breakfast is available in the morning whenever you like. Alana took the key, and upon entering the room, she collapsed on the bed. The day felt like it had been 50 hours. She had never experienced such a whiplash in emotions. She woke up thinking it was the start of a perfect life for herself, and by the end, everything was a wreck. With that last depressing thought, she slipped into sleep. Alana woke in the morning in a panic, thinking she had overslept and was late for an important morning meeting. But reality hit her, and she remembered her situation, which gave her no comfort. Sitting up in bed, she was wearing the same clothes she wore all day yesterday. She had brought nothing with her on this trip, not even a phone charger. Looking in the mirror, she did what she could with her hair before heading out of the room. Good morning. We just got some pancakes made up. Have a seat. The old man from last night said as his wife set a plate down on the table for her. Alana considered saying no thank you and heading out to begin her search for Cole immediately, but she hadn't eaten anything since she left the city. Thank you? You are both too kind, she said, taking a seat. If you don't mind me asking, what brings you into town? You said you might be staying a while, the man asked. I'm looking for someone. A friend I drove away and need to apologize to, she reluctantly admitted. Alana generally did not like revealing her business to strangers, but if she was going to succeed on this trip, she needed to change herself. It's a small town. We might be able to help. What is their name? The woman asked while pouring some coffee. Cole. Cole Braun. He's in his late 20s. Used to live here about 5 or so years ago. The older couple looked at each other. Everyone in town knows about the Braun family and the terrible passing of the parents. We haven't seen or heard from Cole since the funeral. Is he okay? Alana didn't want to be the one to break the news of his hardship to these people. He's doing okay, but I was told he came back to town last night. Well, word gets to us a bit slower here. I would recommend walking around downtown and talking to the shop owners there. They always seem to get the town gossip first. That gave Alana a start, and she quickly finished up her food. Thank you very much for the meal and the conversation. I'm going to head out, but we'll see you all this evening, she said, heading out the door. The town of Jezebel Falls had a small but lovely main street, which is where Alana decided to get started. Given the size of the town, even just walking around could make her run into Cole. But she started off heading into what looked like a pharmacy. At the very least, she could get some toiletries here. Good morning. Haven't seen a new face enter that door in a while. What do you need? The man at the counter asked. I'm visiting town for a few days and didn't pack any essentials. But I'm also looking for someone who may have just returned. Cole Braun. The man's eyes opened wide. Yeah. I heard he came back last night. Haven't seen him myself, though. That was the first bit of good news she had heard since the board meeting. Her intuition had been right about him returning home. Alana took the item she grabbed to the counter. Seeing his family's crop dusting plane fly around was always a treat. It's such a shame they went under. Why did it fail, if you don't mind me asking? She asked, as Cole never told her the whole story. A large farm supply company subcontracted them to service all of the local farms in the area. Family Farm Company, I believe they were called. Well, at some point, they went under. The Braun family figured they would just work directly with the farms, which, for a short time, worked out well. But then another comp. Any came in to fill the hole created by Family Farm Company. They demanded that all of the local farms use them exclusively, including their own crop dusting services. That was the end of the Braun's business. This news was distressing to Alana, and she felt the need to move on quickly. She paid for her items, thanked the man for the information, and left. From there, Alana visited a small clothing store where she bought a few outfits and was eventually directed to the general store in her search for Cole. She entered the store, and a voice cried out from the back. Are you kidding me? When a man flees for hours to get away, maybe take that as a sign he doesn't want to be followed. It was Cole wearing an apron. It looked like he was working here. Cole, I can explain. I know I messed up, but Franklin. I don't want to hear a word about Franklin, you, or anyone from that wretched city. The only good you did me was convincing me to give up and return here. Now I'm going to have to ask you to leave, he said, returning to his work. No. I'm a customer and I have a right to shop here, Alana said, deciding to mirror his stubbornness. Is everything okay out here, Cole? A man emerged near the counter. He looked likely to be the owner of the shop. Yes, sir, just helping out a customer, Cole replied, accepting that he couldn't get rid of Alana. The owner went back into the back room of the store. Cole, please. What can I do to make up for what I did? Alana pleaded. You think your money and influence can fix everything, don't you? Not in this case. You've shown me that's all you care about, he said in an angry but quieter tone. Isn't the fact that I'm here and not back in the city fighting for my job tell you that you're wrong? You'll be gone in a day. As soon as you realize you can't buy my forgiveness, you'll give up, Cole said, walking away from her. I'll stay here for a month if that's what it takes to prove I care about you, Cole. I don't care about losing my company. I care about you more, and I'll prove that. Knowing he wouldn't listen to her anymore, Alana headed out of the store, eager to find ways to show him her love. However, she didn't know how to do it and spent some time walking around town, eventually finding herself walking down a country road. Turning the corner, she found herself face to face with a dozen cattle grazing just off of the road. This didn't seem right, and she noticed a downed fence nearby. The cows had taken advantage and were now walking freely where they pleased. Alana debated what she should do, but a truck pulled up. Hello there. Sorry if my herd here got in your way. I'll get things fixed up here, the man coming out of the truck said. Do you need any help? Alana asked. Well, sure. Come here and take this salt lick. The cows go crazy for it. See if you can't get them to follow you back into my field. I'm Paul, by the way. Alana. And sure. I'd be happy to. Paul handed her a white cube that some of the nearby cows seemed to instantly recognize and started walking towards her. She quickly headed towards the gap in the fence and was followed by every cow on the road. She led them into the field about 100 feet before chucking the salt further inwards, and the cows took chase. Paul had already started working on repairing the fence. Let me hold that for you, Alana said, taking hold of the post. That allowed him to hammer it back in. 10 minutes later, the fence was back to full strength, and the situation was resolved. You saved me a whole lot of trouble there, Alana. Trying to get the cows back to my property while fixing the fence is like herding, well, cows. I'm happy to help. Funny enough, I was walking around looking for opportunities to do just that. Hey, how did you know the cows got loose? Did you see those collars they were wearing? It's GPS tracking. Whenever one of them goes past the fence line, I get notified right away. Before that, I was always worried about a cow getting out and being lost forever. With this system, I can arrive right away at any problem area. Nice. So hey, do you have any other work you need help with? Alana offered. Me? No, I'm pretty much set. But I'll tell you what. See that lot just over there? That's Henry's place. He's been looking for someone to help him repair a busted gate. Well, I think I know just the city girl to help him, Alana said as she quickly started walking that direction. While not the most skilled worker, Alana was eager and proved to be enough help to Henry to fix his gate. He directed her then to his neighbor who needed help with some broken gutters. Each task led her to another and another. Finally, evening arrived, and he had run out of neighbors needing help. Her last employer offered her a ride back to town, which she gladly accepted as she had wandered several miles away by this point. Sweaty, dirty, and tired, she entered the town's local bar and ordered a cold beer to cool off with. She sat at the bar sipping on the bottle when someone sat next to her. How does a billionaire who grew up in the city know how to fix a gate? It was Cole, and it looked like he hadn't come to fight. She doesn't. But she was willing to learn and help out how she could, Alana replied. I heard how you helped all of those people. You did all that just to impress me? Impress you? No. Don't you remember? I'm going to be fired soon. I'm trying to get some new job skills. Alana joked. Cole smiled, the first time she had seen him do so since that board meeting. Cole, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I still want to apologize. I convinced myself I was in the right by doing everything I could to get you this job, but I see now I was wrong. That being said, 2 of those 3 did want to hire you. It was Franklin only that stood in your way. But I could have handled that much better than I did. Alana said sorrowfully. Thank you for saying that. I should have stayed and listened to you, at least. Everything you've done has been to help me, and I've done nothing but make it more difficult. It's obvious I still haven't processed my parents' death and need to seek out therapy. You've taught me something too, Cole. I realized I had no passion in my life. I was too caught up in things I thought I should be doing and not what I wanted to do. The 2 sat for a bit in silence before Cole spoke up again. I've learned something else, though. The lumber company that Franklin wants to buy is here in Jezebel. If that sale goes through and he tears it apart, this town will never recover. I don't understand it, though. I knew the owner of the company. He would never sell to someone who wouldn't keep it running. Cole bemoaned. You mean Mr. Groth? The bartender said after overhearing. He sold it to another gentleman a year ago. Made him promise not to shut it down. It seems he is getting around that agreement by selling it himself to someone to sell it for parts. Who is the new owner? Cole asked. Let me think. He wasn't from around here. John Weiss, I believe it was. Weiss is the same last name as Franklin. Maybe it's by chance, but that seems too convenient. Alana said, thinking about it. Call the board. Get them to look into the sale. Cole suggested. I can't. I'm about to be fired, remember? I'm not supposed to be involved in company business right now. The 2 felt helpless as they sat there, unsure what to do next. But Alana refused to be so powerless. She chugged the rest of her beer and slammed it on the bar. Even if there's a chance Franklin is doing something fishy, I have to check it out. I'm going to the offices of that lumber company. Maybe I can find something there, she said, getting up. And I'm coming too, Cole said. What I'm doing might be skirting the law a bit here. Are you sure you are up for this? I spent numerous years of my life homeless, which is basically illegal in this country. I'm used to it. Alana smiled, and the couple was off. They elected to walk to the lumber mill's offices, and by the time they arrived, it was pitch black out. The lights were completely off inside, and things looked deserted. They found the door locked shut. Maybe we can break a window, but that might draw attention to us, Alana said, looking around. I got this, Cole said confidently. He took out a few small needles from his pocket and stuffed them into the keyhole. It took him over a minute, but eventually, the door clicked and swung open. Is that something you learned being homeless? Alana asked. Homeless? No. Being a dumb teenager? Yes. Inside the office, they started looking around, eventually finding a computer. Cole, I think this is probably our best bet, Alana said, directing him to the screen. She sat in front and turned it on. As she feared, the computer asked for a password. Crap. Looks like a dead end, Cole said. Alana wasn't so sure. She opened up a nearby drawer and pulled out a single post-it. On it was written the phrase password 1. She typed it into the computer, and it was accepted. Is that something you learned being a billionaire? Cole asked jokingly. Billionaire? No. Working with morons? Yes. Alana went straight to the email and searched Franklin Weiss, and numerous search results came back. Franklin had been talking with John even before he bought the lumber company. Digging deeper, she found out the reason. They were brothers. The emails laid everything out. John bought out the mill and has held onto it for a few years. Starting a few months ago, Franklin started evaluating the company for a possible buyout. In reality, he was overinflating its value so that Goodwin Acquisitions would buy it for tens of millions more than John had originally paid for it. The 2 of them were scheming to rip off the company for their own personal benefits. I finally got you, bastard, Alana said. She had a feeling for years that he was doing something unethical, and she finally had proof. She plugged a USB flash drive she kept on her keychain into the computer and copied all of the emails into it. Suddenly, a voice cried out behind them. "Who the hell are you?" A man bearing a resemblance to Franklin yelled out. "John the First, presume," Alana said, pulling her flash drive out. "Alana? Oh crap." He turned and ran. "He's going to warn Franklin," she said, taking chase with Cole following closely. John turned a corner and went out of sight. When Cole and Alana caught up to that spot, they couldn't see him anywhere. Everything was dark, so they stayed close together and walked into a nearby room, trying to find a sign of him. "Something is spread all over the ground," Alana pointed out. The door behind them closed, and they heard the sound of a hard click. John had trapped them in here. Cole took a shot at breaking down the door, but it wasn't going to happen. "I can't see anything in here." "Feel around and see if there is a window or something," Cole suggested. They spent what felt like an hour going around the room but found nothing. "Damn. The board meeting is in the morning. I would need to leave now if I were to get there in time to stop the sale," Alana said, feeling helpless. "What about your phone?" Cole asked. "I haven't charged it since yesterday morning. It's long dead." "There's nothing we can do but wait," Cole said. "I know you're right." Alana on the ground next to him. "I'm sorry, Alana. I feel like this is all my fault. If I hadn't gotten you to try and stop the sale of this lumberyard, you could have gone back and tried to keep your job. I created a company that preys on people's livelihoods. Yeah, I say that I'm saving them by buying them before they become completely worthless. But is a vulture that starts eating an animal before it's dead any less of a scavenger? Deep down, I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I was so good at it. But then you came along and showed a whole new way of operating. I will always be grateful to you for that. Even if I lose my company, I will still know I tried to do good in the end with it." Alana paused. She had learned something today that was tearing her up inside, but she had to come clean. "Your parents' crop dusting company was subcontracted by a company called Family Farm Company. It was when that company fell apart that your parents' own business soon followed. Family Farm Company was one of the first companies I acquired and sold off the pieces. I am directly responsible for you and your family falling apart. I'm so sorry, Cole. I've known that the whole time. As soon as you told me your company's name, I knew exactly who you were," Cole said. Alana really wished it wasn't so dark so she could see what his face looked like as he said those words. "But why?" she stuttered, unsure how to respond. "You didn't destroy any part of my family. We were a complete family with or without that crop dusting business. But when I learned who you were, I wanted to learn more about you. Were you a good person or the greedy jerk I always imagined? And I found out you were a kind person willing to grow, even at the risk of your wealth." Alana felt his hand find hers in the dark. "I also learned that I'm in love with that woman," Cole said, squeezing her hand. "Cole," Alana said, leaning in and finding his lips. It was then that a light appeared in the room. "Oh, the sun is coming up," Cole said. The light lit up their room and revealed it was filled with barrels of salt. "Why does a lumber company have so much salt?" Alana asked, picking some of it up from a nearby barrel. "They use it to treat the wood. They dissolve the salt in water and apply it as a way of weatherproofing," Cole pointed out. "Of course you knew that," she teased back. Alana took a closer look at the hole where the light was coming from. Peeking through it, she could see cows on the other side. Cows with devices wrapped around their necks. "Those are Paul's cows," Alana called out. "Paul? He's still herding cattle? How can you tell?" "He has GPS devices wrapped around their necks. This is perfect." Alana grabbed a handful of salt and tossed it against the hole in the wall. Only a small portion made it through the hole, but that's all she needed. She picked up another handful and repeated the process. "What are you doing?" Cole questioned. "Cows go crazy for salt. If I can get them to notice the salt I'm throwing, I'll bet they will break down that fence and get out in order to get to it," she said, throwing another handful at the hole. "How will convincing a cow to vandalize a fence help us?" Cole questioned. Because when the cows move past the fence boundaries, Paul will get a notification and drive here immediately. It was then they heard something snap outside. Peeking out of the hole again, Alana was thrilled to see a cow had done exactly as she had hoped and broken through the fence. "Good cow," she yelled out. "How did you know all of this?" Cole questioned. "You're just upset I knew something you didn't," she teased. 5 minutes later, just as she predicted, Paul drove up in his truck. "Paul! Paul! Paul!" Alana yelled. Paul looked around, confused, but finally figured out where he was hearing his name coming from. He walked over to the wall they were yelling from. "Alana? What are you doing in there?" he questioned. "We're trapped in here. The front door is unlocked. Can you get us out?" Alana explained as quickly as she could. Paul walked away, and a couple of minutes later the door opened, and Cole and Paul were freed. "Cole? When did you get back?" Paul asked, seeing a friend for the first time in ages. "Just a couple of days ago. Listen, I want to catch up, but right now, we need to get her to the city as fast as possible," Cole said frantically. "What time is it?" Alana asked, fearing the answer. 6:30, he said, holding up his phone. "We'll never make it," Alana said in despair. "What if you call them and tell them what we learned?" Cole suggested. "I doubt anyone will take my call. John has probably already warned Franklin, and he has probably told everyone not to talk to me or risk losing their jobs. The only way we can make it is if we fly, not that there's a plane available." "What if there was?" Paul asked with a smile. Paul refused to elaborate on this comment but ordered us into his truck and drove us a short distance to a nearby barn. He pushed open the door, revealing a beautiful-looking propeller plane. "That's my family's plane. How is this possible?" Cole said, running up to it and examining it. "A group of us pulled some money together and bought it before it could be sold off by the bank. We've been keeping it maintained here ever since. We always knew you would come back sometime, Cole," Paul said happily. Cole ran and hugged Paul tightly. "Thank you for this. It means more than you could possibly know," Cole said, tearing up a bit. "Is it fueled and ready to go?" he asked Paul. Paul nodded, and they made plans to fly to the city. Several hours later, Franklin was eager to get the board meeting going, having heard some troubling news from his brother. "Gentlemen, shall we begin by voting on acquiring the lumber mill?" he said as people were still entering. "Weren't we going to first vote on Alana? She isn't even here yet," one of the board members said, looking around. "I don't think she is coming, which should be pretty telling. But we can discuss that next. Are we ready to vote then?" Franklin asked eagerly. "Before you do, tell them about John," Alana called out at the entrance to the conference room. "This vote has nothing to do with you. Wait outside until we get to your vote, Alana," Franklin said while starting to sweat visibly. The screen in the room began projecting the emails that she and Cole found at the lumber mill. "John Weiss, the current owner of the lumber mill, is Franklin's brother. In his diligent analysis of his brother's company, Franklin is recommending we pay 10 times what he paid," Alana explained, walking around the room. "This is fraud, Franklin. We'll see you jailed for this," a board member said, examining the emails. Franklin backed up from the crowd, mumbling. "No. You don't understand. She. Cole then walked into the room, which set Franklin off. If you hadn't saved her from the dump truck, I paid to kill her." He ran up to Cole with his fists ready to punch, but Cole stepped to the side. Behind him, Alana stood ready and popped him right in the face. Several security guards then picked him up and took a raving Franklin away. "Well, I, for one, say we vote down both the lumber mill proposal and the one to fire Ms. Goodwin. In fact, I think we owe you an apology to you both. I ask that you please stay on as the leader of our company," the board member asked. "On the condition that you agree with my proposal to revamp the company as Cole has suggested," Alana insisted. A vote was taken, and all agreed. Tired, Alana announced she was taking the rest of the week off. The new direction can wait till Monday. She and Cole headed back to her place to regroup. "Where will you go now, Cole?" You sold your shelter away. You're like double homeless now, Alana asked. I was thinking if my girlfriend asked me to move in with her, I would accept it, Cole shyly stated. She might agree to that, but only if he accepts it as help and not something that she needs to be paid back for. I can accept that, Cole said. The couple smiled at each other and kissed. But you still owe me a couple of sessions mowing my lawn shirtless, Alana said. The couple laughed and tussled as they embraced passionately. Meanwhile, though, a message popped up on Alana's phone, unknown to them at the time. My brother and I were going to be rich. Don't think just because he's in jail means you're safe.